Welcome Wolfpack, and here we are surviving the economic crisis. This is all about surviving the economic reset, the economic collapse, whatever you want to call what is coming, which is inevitable. So we've been talking about this for weeks. This is a rerun, redesign, bringing it up to date with 2025 for the surviving the economic crisis. This is an epic presentation. I hope you appreciate it. We've got a bunch of slides to get through. Just to give you a little taster of what we got in store for you for this video, we're going to be looking at the wealth timeline of an economic collapse, of a great reset, whatever you want to call it, whatever you think version of it will be. And what we're going to do is we're going to track it from now, during the SHTF, whatever it is they've got planned to do that transition into the new system. And then we're going to look at after as to whether you're going to maintain your wealth, lose it, keep it, pros and cons of each of them. We'll look at how to survive the event, what to expect, things you're going to need, things you're going to need to prepare for during this process that's going to take place at some point in time, looking like it's going to be soon. 1 week preparation, so I'll give you a rough idea what it should look like, and plus a 1 month. But then we'll be looking at, okay, so what happens when the Great Reset happens and the new system is established? We go through that SHTF scenario for weeks, perhaps even a couple of months, while the new system's put into place and no one's got anything, and it's complete chaos and disaster and panic. Not for us, but for most everyone else out there is going to be. So when the dust settles, what's going to happen when you get your CBDC card, your slave card, and you're told how much you're going to get in your UBI credits, right? So we're going to look at all of that. Has your wealth survived when we come through out the other side? And we'll look at all the different versions of how you can try and maintain your wealth and transfer your wealth from before, the now, during the crisis, and maintaining that wealth after in one of these different things, plus other, if you can think of something else as well. So I'd really like to hear your comments throughout today's presentation. I'd really like to hear your input as to what you think and other ways that you can bring to the table to help the rest of the wolf pack to survive the economic crisis. So let's get into it. Get yourselves a brew. Thank you to each and every one of you for joining me. Cheers, everyone. And let's get into it then. Prepping for SHTF, surviving the economic crisis that is inevitably coming. I've done a bunch of videos recently showing all the economic indicators. It's not looking good out there. So it's about time we started thinking seriously about how we're going to survive the economic crisis and the economic reset. There just comes a point in time where currencies just can't continue. Global economies come to a point where capitalism comes to a point where it consumes itself, and we're bridging close to all of these things. So this is what we're talking about today. And as you expect from me, Sigma Prepper, a more strategic approach to preparedness. So we'll be breaking it down, pros and cons of each of the things, and let you decide. And at the same time, this is obviously for educational / information purposes only, entertainment purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor, so anything you hear me say in this video is not financial advice by any means. It's just opinion. So why do we need to prepare? What's the point of even worrying about anything, right? Why can't we just chill out? Well, modern Western societies are suffering from learned dependency. Yeah, we're reliant so heavily on the government nowadays. The whole thing about being a Sigma type personality is you want to be self-reliant, you want to be self-sufficient as much as possible. But unfortunately, the world is set up, particularly the Western world, to be very model coddling. And this actually creates a level of learned dependency. So people learn to become dependent on the government. And this has a cascade effect as well. So as our society is degraded somewhat in our skills for things like rearing, raising cattle and being able to feed chickens and understand how to get chickens to lay eggs isn't as easy as some people think. Back in the day, everyone knew how to do that. Nowadays, it's really, really rare for someone to really have a good understanding of farming, gardening, and livestock and stuff like that. So we're losing all these skills. The supply chain as well is a critical mass. The just-in-time supply chain system has been damaged a few times, and we've seen the effects of that back in 2020, and also recently with all the tariffs going on has also had a big effect on that. So economy is already teetering on the edge of collapse. As we know, the Anglo-American Empire is at the end game status. Let's be serious about it, right? All the signs are there. The BRICS nations getting together the way they are. And of course, we just seem to be slipping back and back further and further. And it's happened before in history, it'll happen again. And of course, big problem is the population is already so heavily leveraged when it comes to debt and things like this. With the inflation the way it is, on top of that makes it impossible. Wages haven't changed very much. over recent times to keep up with inflation. So everyone's already stretched. And on top of that, of course, leading to unemployment levels, which are in some places, you know, get into sort of catastrophic chaos levels of unemployment. And of course, with AI and automation coming in the way it is, that's only set to be to become a bigger problem. And as I said before, the learned dependence element, you know, we're so reliant on big government and, you know, big tech and stuff. Once that's taken away, people are so literally don't know what to do, and they go into panic mode. And these are the people that cause us a problem, where we've already prepared and we're already ready. And these are the people who end up causing all the problems because they're just literally running around with their hair on fire. We don't want to be one of those people. So we already know poverty and crime on the rise. So when things do go wrong and the government isn't there to protect the people due to lack of resources or lack of will, whatever it might be, that poverty and crime is just going to escalate quite rapidly. So more and more reasons than ever to need to prepare with modern day society the way it is. That's the point of that. Why learn from me though, Sigma Prepper, Drew Law? Well, prepping for more than 20 plus years, lived in many countries around the world. You can read it all here. I'm author of books as well to do with prepping and survival. I bring products to market and design products for survival. So you can make up your own mind, but like I say up here, lots of great prepper YouTube channels, but you know, if you're listening to someone who doesn't know what they're talking about, it can cost you dearly in this game. So just be vigilant. So plausible SHTF scenarios then. What's the sort of thing that could cause the final crash to happen, the big collapse, the 2008 on fentanyl kind of style? Well, major crisis leading to the Great Reset. Of course, the biggest thing is that they want it to happen because in order for you to bring in a new system, you first need to destroy the old one. And it's just easier to wrap that up into some massive crisis that can lead to the destruction of the global economy, to then bring in the new system, as a lot of people are aware, is on the cards. And so there's a whole number of things that could lead to that, but with what we've got going on with the warfare, economic warfare between America and China particularly, or America and the rest of the world to a large degree, with these blanket tariffs that have been put on, the sanctions on things like Russia as well, which have unsettled people holding the dollar, feeling less and less willing to, with the way it's used in these situations like sanctions. So currency collapse, hyperinflation is another big one. We saw that in Zimbabwe, Venezuela, places like that's happened before. Widespread hardware failure, of course, a banking collapse can happen because of that, just a cascade effect, where a lot of things go wrong all at the same time. And yeah, just from a technical hardware point of view. Societal collapse, civil war and things. A lot of people think that many Western societies are on the edge of that already. That can lead to economic collapse as well. But that then tends to be more of a local based economic issues. We're talking more of a global reset type style thing. So lots of things that could take us out. The military EMP, solar flare, Carrington level event, EMP from a solar flare could to take the grid down for a period of time. That would do it as well. So all of these things are relevant. Of course, if you do keep subscribed to the Sigma Prepper channel, then anytime any of these things happen, or even there's any signals that these sorts of things might happen, I'll be bringing it to you straight away. So make sure you're subscribed and you won't miss anything. So the situation report then, this is what we're going to be simulating today in our SHTF scenario with the economic crisis, is going to be looking like this. So the following hypothetical SHTF scenario is based on real events that have happened throughout history. So when you study all the different things that happen in these types of events that have happened more of a national, local basis versus a global one, there has been times in the past where it's affected all countries around the world, economic issues going on, but what is coming is going to be something that people have never seen before. And this is how it will look. So it'll be an emergency bank holiday called. We've seen this before. All trade and commerce will be ceased overnight. It will be a case of all cash machines within, I don't know how long, an hour, will be empty or just shut down to stop people withdrawing their money. If you can call it money, cash. Fiat currency, we'll get to that. Stock market will be halted straight away. Bank bail-ins would have already failed at this point. Your account access will be denied. All your web apps and banking apps will just be like, sorry about your luck. Your account access will be denied. State of emergency will be declared. All the usual stuff, right? So this is what we would expect to be the first day or two. It will usually happen on a Sunday night / Monday. It'll be a bank holiday Monday called. Usually is how they do it. That's how they did it in Greece and other countries, right? So that's kind of the situation that we're going to be basing this scenario on. So bear this in mind. This is what we expect to happen based on what's happened before. So this could continue for about 4 weeks or more. This could be a major crisis that takes everything down for as much as 4 weeks. A lot of people, perhaps 3 months, some people have said, but a lot of people will suspect that they will use something like a cyber attack or something as a mechanism to create that crisis to then bring in the new system. So a cyber attack would make sense in as much as you'd be able to destroy a lot of records under the guise of that and say, oh, sorry, we've got no record of what you had in your bank balance as a balance because it was all wiped out. That's why we're starting again. So we have to assume these things are a possibility. These are the sorts of things that are floated around that I have to listen to and then put all together and say, well, what would it actually look like in real terms? So in terms of what we're talking about today with this video, personalizing preparedness is important. You need to be able to take this in the context of your own life, your own location, your own needs and things like this, right? So this is about tailoring the plan of your preparations based on your climate and environment's a big one. Whether you need to be worrying about air conditioning or heating if you're living in Alaska or something like that. Off-grid, you're going to have bigger problems to solve. Local laws and restrictions, things like gun laws in America versus that in Europe are very different. Even Canada has more problems on that front than they used to have. So you have to take that into consideration when it comes to hunting and when it comes to things like protection and defences. So local culture and crime levels is going to have a massive impact, of course. Some countries are just prone to higher levels of crime than others. Some cities are more crime ridden than the more rural areas, of course. So if you're living in a rural log cabin, your experience is going to be very different than if you're a city apartment. So that's what we're talking about here. So just put it in your own terms of your problems are going to be greater or lesser depending on your personal situation. Family size is a great one. We have only one child. Some people that follow me have 5, and so they have bigger problems to solve on that level, 5 times as many problems. Animals, dependents, pets, don't forget your animals when it comes to preparations. Disabilities, a lot of people overlook some of the difficulties in that, but they're all solvable, as so many of my videos talk about ways that even single lone parents or disabled people can have just as much chance of getting through these things unscathed as some Rambo type dude. So it's all about strategic preparedness and about being tactical and having leverage and maximizing certain things. You can outdo the average Joe without these sorts of skills, right? Or techniques. So budget and financial means clearly is going to be a massive one in this. Talking about economic collapse and economic investments and wealth survival during these sorts of a crises. This is all subject to budget. So I personally don't have a massive budget, as those who know me know, at all. But that's one of the reasons why people follow me, because I help people who equally don't have a massive budget to do a pretty good job of being super prepared. So we'll just scale that based on what you're able to do or not, and you'll see during this there's many ways you can prepare without necessarily having lots of money. Personal survival, self-defense knowledge is going to be a bit flexible amongst everybody watching this. So of course, just take everything we're talking about here in light and personalize it to your own situation and deal with it accordingly. Scale up accordingly, right? So this is the crux of what we're getting into with the timeline, because the whole point of this is to what we can do now to prepare, what we can do during the SHTF to try and survive it, and then obviously after, how are we coming out with it, and how do we now transfer whatever it is into whatever it is that the new thing is successfully with minimal loss. Yeah, that's the objective, with minimal loss, right? We want to carry over our wealth from now to the after through that SHTF period and get our wealth become unscathed and not be confiscated or gone to zero or whatever it might be. So that's what we're looking at, and we're going to look at all the different options for you. So let's start off with the right now then. What can we do to prepare right now with what we do have? So this is an important one. Things are changing really fast as well. That's why I wanted to redo this video for 2025. We've got the whole AI thing going on and automation. It's going to change the landscape big time for employment. So things like reducing monthly outgoings is an obvious one, but when we do have what we've got going on at the moment, as well as coming up, every penny is gonna, is gonna make a massive difference. And to be honest, a lot of people don't have a outgoings problem; they actually have an income problem. I know that's my problem. I live so leanly, so really I can't really live any more lean than I am. It's an income problem. So generating additional income is a key feature. And there's so many different ways nowadays, like I say, with the innovation of all the technology out there, all the ways you can earn online, remote work, side hustles, gigs, you name it. There's so many different ways that you can increase your income rather than gaming or whatever it might be. Do you know what I mean? I mean, I'm not calling anyone out. I'm just saying there are options. eBaying old stuff, right? eBaying old stuff. Invest in food and stuff, yeah, and use cash. Just so you don't show a trail of hoarding, in case they bring out some hoarding laws like they did before with COVID, and they started looking at people's transactions to see frequent large orders that were non-typical for that individual. You know what I mean? So just be thoughtful. Keep old hardware and tools. You never know, might come in handy as barter items down the line. And obviously, as things become scarce, your option to just buy something new as a consumable once it breaks or something is not going to be the same. So you're going to be more likely to needing to be repairing things rather than just throwing them away and buying a new one from Amazon. That won't be a thing. So things like tools and things, it might not seem important now, but just keep hold of them, because you never know. It might even be someone else down the road that lives near you that needs that tool to help him fix something, or help her fix something, which you can then barter for something that you need. So keep all your old hardware and tools if you've got the space. Geo-disperse your preps and alternative locations. If you've already got to the point where you feel like you're pretty well prepared, you've already got a good 3 months worth of food and water and stuff stored, and you've got good energy, off-grid energy generation and so on, then you would then move in to start looking at geographically dispersing your preps to like another location, have another little sort of 25% of what your main thing is in another location. Stash decoys are things like having a box of stuff, so if you get, a gang of people come round and threaten you and give me some food now, if they storm in your house, you can just guide them to a very easily locatable, oh, it's in the cupboard down there, and they saw a nice box of tins and food, and they just make sure it's a box that they need both hands to carry. And there's a strategic advantage to making sure that both of their hands are full on the way out, if you know what I mean. So if you've got things like decoy things that it's like your main preps are somewhere else, but you can just, oh, they're in the cupboard down there, and it kind of looks like a box of stash of preps, right? So just things like that you can start doing once you've got your main stuff in. Improving your health and fitness is a big one. I was going to be doing a big part of that this year, personally, to improve my health and fitness. I'm not doing the mixed martial arts twice a week like I used to, and I'm really feeling that. So I'm feeling like I need to improve the health and fitness. Invest time in skills and knowledge. I'm sure there's lots of things that you can learn that you wish you could know. Essentially, to be the ultimate Sigma prepper, you need to be having the skill set of the average town as an individual. So there's never a shortage of things to learn, and it's free nowadays. Like I say, with what you've got with AI, with the way the internet is, there's so many resources out there, including a lot of my books and things as well. There's no excuse not to be able to develop new skills and knowledge. So protection and security systems, I always say you should spend about 15% at least on the way to secure your goods. So if you've got £1,000 budget, you should be spending about $200, $150 or so, £150 or so of that $1,000 with the means to protect it. So, motion sensor, security systems, light activated stuff, bulletproof vests. Do you know what I mean? As you scale up, you should be scaling up your ability to protect and secure your preps as well. So don't let that go by the side. And again, strengthening your local friendships, super important. You're going to rely on people around you. And everybody that you can make a friend is just one less enemy you got knocking on your door, right? And anybody that you can encourage to also prepare around you is, again, one less person that's going to come knocking on your door asking you for a tin of beans or else. Yeah. So one thing I could highly recommend is to download my trade war prepping guide, because so much stuff in there is like super relevant for what we've got going on in the world right now, particularly with the tariffs and things. It looks like this. It's 45 megabytes. It's 85 pages. It's RAM packed. It's, if I don't mind saying myself, it's beautifully designed. It's absolutely rammed full of information for you, how to prepare for things like this, all the way down to when to expect what you should get, when you should get it, even graphs of things like battery banks and how long things can last when you charge them. Lich, RAM pack, so please download that. The link will be in the description of this video below. Even got checklists that are all dynamic and you can save your progress as well. Completely interactive menu system throughout as well, so definitely take advantage of that. The link is in the description below. It's a free download trade war prepping guide, some great economics information in there for you as well, right? So right now then, a lot of people ask me this over the years when we come to these sorts of topics, and they say, well, what do we do about debt? You know, should we pay that off? Should we not pay it off? And one of the reasons a lot of the reasons why people ask that is because there's this sort of like idea about a debt jubilee, where for those that aren't familiar, a debt jubilee is where it's like a debt forgiveness. Yeah, essentially the economy collapses, they change into some new currency they've been coming up with in the background, and rather than transferring over the debt that people have, they just wipe the slate clean and say, right, you know what, debt jubilee, we're just gonna wipe the slate clean, and if you had like $50,000 on credit cards, it'll just get wiped, right? But equally, that would mean that the billionaires' accounts that have $1 billion would be wiped as well. So I'm not sure they're going to want to go along with that. So whether that is actually what will end up being the case, we don't know. So do you rely on a debt jubilee and they're just going to wipe the slate clean? What if you've got loads of debt and the economy collapses, or there's a great reset? Does that mean that they're going to use that as some leverage to say anyone who's got debt over a certain amount, you go into a FEMA camp? Who knows, right? You could do what the government does if you don't want to pay it off, right? Clearly, if you've got the money sitting there to pay off the debt, unless it's good debt, because there's a difference between good debt and bad debt, right? Good debt is debt that's used to gain assets and things that accrue in interest and appreciate and stuff, right? But if it's a bad debt, then definitely you should pay it off if you can. But what does the government do? Well, the government basically just delays paying its debt off because of inflation. The value of the dollar, for example, becomes less and less all the time. So if you borrow $1 million in 2000, and in the year 2025, that $1 million that you borrowed isn't worth $1 million anymore because of the currency depreciating over time, but the amount that you owe stays the same. So there are benefits to delay paying your debts, because your debt is locked in at a number, $1 million, and so over time it becomes much easier to pay back $1 million, because believe me, in 10 years time in America everyone will be a millionaire, right? If it carries on the way this is, just because of inflation. So these are the things when it comes to sort of what do we do about debt. And again, when it comes to mortgages versus owning a property, mortgages is a difficult one, because of course, you know, if there's a great reset and all that, we got to consider the possibility of if you don't own it, you don't own it, and the bank owns it, and what's going to happen there. It's a tricky one, but it's one that has to be talked about, because it's going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing, and we're not sure what they're going to want to do about the debt, because everyone's got a debt problem, countries as well, right? So what are the signs then? Because what we need to know is, what are the signs that we should look out for to know that we're well on the way for this about to happen? And so we need to know when we know. We need to know when we're out of time, right? And this is how we're going to know. So some of the signals here is going to be stuff like rapid inflation, shortage of critical items and services, reduction in banking credit facilities without notice. This is things like your credit card company suddenly deciding that instead of a $10,000 credit limit on your credit card, it's now a $6,000 credit limit. Things like this, right? Your overdraft limit on your bank account may be £1,000, and then all of a sudden they say no, there is no overdraft facility now, it's zero, so you need to pay us £1,000 right now. Things like this, right? So the DXY currency indicators fall rapidly. This is the currency confidence indicator, basically, the DXY. You'll see that fall rapidly. The 10-year Treasury bond as well. The yields on that, when they start going like above 5% and they start going up, more and more interest offered on the debt, that'll be a good sign as well. Banking stocks begin to fall in price. Gold and silver prices increase to record levels because, of course, people flee from traditional banking systems into precious metals and stuff like that. As a bet against the dollar. Crypto assets will start to moon because, again, people are just fleeing from fiat currency. So you'll start to see a lot of money push into cryptos because they just won't know where else to put it. Multiple banks experience long queues, people wanting to withdraw money and finding that they can't. ATMs, cash machines running out of cash. And, of course, that feeds back round to where I first began with what this SHTF scenario situation report looked like, where we had things like teller machines not outputting cash, and all of the things that happen alongside it. Your banking app's not working. You'll also have the government and mainstream claiming there's nothing to worry about. This is like I say about what happened in Greece, yeah, when they went bankrupt basically, and the banks, before Friday, they said, oh, don't worry about it, we'll get it figured out, we're going to have a meeting Sunday and we'll get it figured out. And then sure enough, Monday came, they called an emergency bank holiday Monday, and then when they opened the account, no one had any money left. Sorry about your luck. So they'll tell you that it's all good in the hood, don't worry about it. Yeah. If you want to learn more about that, funnily enough, I did a video not that long ago, literally like a week ago. Critical alert. It looks like this. You'll see the thumbnail. And again, I'll link the video in the description below so you can watch it. And I'll put a card up the top there that will pop up for you to watch it. But it's interesting because this video actually shows that we have hit nearly every one of these indicators, scarily enough. Virtually every single one of these indicators we have hit. Yeah. With everything that's been going on recently, with the sanctions, the tariffs, the trade wars, right? The supply system thingy bobs. You got the layoffs in the tech industry. Like, it's all happening. Watch this video because I highlight it. All the indicators that I was just mentioned there, they're all falling apart, right? So let's assume then that the time's up, rubber duck, and we are at the point now. We're over and done with the now. We're out of time for our preparedness. We can't buy anything anymore. Whatever we had is what we had, right? So now we've moved into the SHTF zone. We're actually in the crisis now. So this is the bit where it's shut down, lights off. They probably will shut the lights off because, like I say, it'll be under the guise of some sort of a cyber attack, which will include taking the grid down. You can just imagine it, right? And everyone in panic mode for like several weeks with no electricity. So we're going to now work out how we carry through this period once we've done what we needed to do to prepare, as I showed you before, right? Now, this is the point where time's up. So at this point, you wake up in the morning, no direct debits are working, there's no cash machines working, no ATMs are going to give you any money, no PayPal, no e-commerce, no shopping online, no eBay, Amazon, none of that stuff will be rocking. The currency, essentially, value will be zero. That should theoretically look the same with the stock markets, will just be closed. And, all retail stores will be closed because they'll just be called shut as a bank holiday, forced bank holiday for all stores, because there'll be no account systems running in the background. There'll be no transaction processing able to happen in the background on the bank systems because of this cyber attack or whatever it will be as the guise. So, will be in a situation whatever you've got is what you've got, like in any grid down scenario that we prepare for, right? Once that switch goes bush, whatever you're left with is what you're left with. Whatever you didn't get, whatever you didn't order online, you're never going to be able to. At least not for the foreseeable future, right? So this is time up, rubber duck. This is where we're at. It's happened, right? So, like I say, this is the situation report just as a reminder of what it would look like with the emergency bank holiday. All the trade and commerce will be ceased and stuff, right? The stock market halted. You can't do anything. You can't buy anything. Hence, the state of emergency will be declared. It will maybe not martial law, but after a time it will be. Maybe after a couple of weeks, where people start getting desperate and gnarly. But they need people to get desperate and gnarly so that people start begging the government to just do anything to make it stop. And they'll be like, well, we could do this one thing that we've been working on. It's called a central bank digital currency, you see. Right? You know how it goes. You know how they do. So, and don't forget, this could continue for 4 weeks or more. Some people say 3 months is how they would play it out, right? So what we're going to do then is look at, well, what are our options then, right? How do we help our wealth to survive over that period of SHTF that could go on to weeks, if not months, right? Of no banking, no retail, everything collapsing, businesses not knowing what they're going to do to stay open or if they're even going to have a business anymore. It will be like it was in the lockdowns, but like 100 times worse. And it will be everywhere. It's not just going to be in America. It's not just going to be in Britain. It's not just going to be in our friends over in Australia. It's going to be in all of our countries, everywhere, right? Everything's tied to the dollar, don't forget. Once the dollar goes down, the euro's 24 hours behind that, and the pound is about 48 hours behind the euro. No one's getting away with it, right? So we need to look at what our options are, right? Which one do we put our sheets into? Whatever sheets we've got now after we've done the important stuff like preparing with the storing your water and stuff like this, right? And getting your food preps and your energy with your solar panels, your battery banks, whatever you're doing, right? Whatever you got left over in terms of your wealth storage, how are you gonna carry it over, right? This is what we're gonna look at. And I'm really interested to see what your thoughts are. Even at this point right now, I'd be really interested for you to let me know in the comments below right now. Let me know, yeah? What do you think is the safest storage? Given the situation I've just laid out so far that we've just led ourselves up to, that now we're like, bosh, see you later alligator, no internet probably, right? Power outage for at least the first week just to really make people hurt, yeah? And dependent on the government, right? And reliant, because that means like whatever we tell you, you got to do or else. FEMA camp, yeah? So I want you to tell me what you would do. What do you think is the safest thing to store your sheets in to get through this crisis and out the other side, whatever the other side looks like? So that whatever you're left with, you can convert back into whatever the new system is and still maintain your wealth. So let me know in the comments below. I'm really interested to hear your thoughts, right? And we'll break it down and we'll see. Yeah, we'll see if we agree. So, and you may come up with stuff that I haven't put into this, which is the whole point. Yeah, I want this to be an open forum of discussion of people talking about how we're going to get through this, because it is coming. It is baked into the cake mathematically, right? So first thing is like surviving the event then as we're going through it, so that we need to be worrying about food production and storage. Yeah, if it's going on a long time, food production is important because it is leverage in terms of, because food prices are going up all the time, a lot of people are growing their own food, not even because of that. A lot of people are growing their own food just because they can control the ingredients, right? All too many people are aware how much stuff's sprayed on their food nowadays, or coatings that are put on their fruit they didn't want on there. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. So a lot of people want to produce their own food just so they can control the ingredients and the quality of it, yeah? So still keep doing that, yeah? But storage of food is really important, you know? And the way you keep it and in buckets as well to stop mice getting it, even if you're vacuum sealing it with oxygen absorbers like your rice and your pasta to keep it lasting 6 years instead of 6 months. Yeah? You need to put that in buckets as well to stop rats and mice getting to it, right? So medical knowledge and supplies is important because, you know, you're not going to be relying on hospitals and things. They're just going to be ram-packed. You need to figure it out yourself. You need to make sure you've got your prescription drugs that you need for that period as well, because there's going to be no picking them up. Yeah? There's going to be no trade, don't forget. Security and protection, you need to have that in place. It's going to be a really important one, right? You can't underestimate the gnarliness of people. When people get desperate and they're hungry, yeah, and they're like impoverished, and their kids are at home crying and they're out trying to beg for food for them, people end up going postal quite easily in those situations, right? So the ability to protect yourself from that and secure your property and your family and your loved ones is super epic, right? Don't overlook that. Communications, tactical, important. Again, grid down scenario, we don't know. It's likely, yeah? They don't want people talking, don't forget. So communications breakdown, internet maybe. So having ham radios and other ways to be able to listen to the radio for government announcements and things like that's going to be important. AM, FM, low band, high band, stuff like that. So hardware, tools and supplies. You're not going to be able to buy a box of screws or a box of nails from the hardware store if you need them, like to re-secure your property because there's been damage on it because you've had a gang of people come door to door demanding to give them food or else, right? And they smashed your window in. You're going to need to have already the stuff to put that back together with your you know, marine plywood with your screws ready to screw it over to protect yourself and, you know, make good. You're going to have all this stuff. Repair items, spare items, knowledge and wide-ranging skills, as I said before. Yeah, your community and your support group. You're never going to just survive on your own unless you really are on your own in the middle of nowhere and you've got a complete lack of people. But if you're in an apartment block and you're on your own, then you're going to have no choice but to make sure that you maintain a good community and support group within that building, within that street, within that neighborhood, within that village. Yeah. Essentials for barter items. If you've got nothing else, you'd be surprised. Having a box of cheap $1 lighters, right? A box of $51 lighters from Amazon, right? Good barter. Little bottles of vodka and whiskey, yeah, for alcoholics who are going to be desperate on day 3, right? These are barter items. Even things like screws and plywood are barter items, yeah? Knowledge and skills are barter items. There's a lot of people that follow my channel who have a great number of skills that are extremely valuable in a crisis. You know, medical nurses that follow this channel who can barter their medical knowledge for food, for ammo, you name it, right? So don't think this is just barter items for physical goods, yeah? Cash in various denominations. Now you see I've got this like red asterisk caveat star here, right? Now there is a caveat to this because in a true crisis where things broken down, it's like epic. What you're going to find is that your cash is only going to last so long in terms of its value, because when it gets to about the 5, 6, 7 day mark, your dollars or your pounds or whatever just aren't going to seem as appealing, even if you're offering like $100 for a tin of beans. People are going to start to realize that those dollars are less important than those tin of beans, and so they're not going to sell them to you because they're going to have less. Don't forget, dollars are only worth dollars because people believe they are. In a crisis like we're talking about here, are they going to have that same belief in the value of the dollar if they are suspecting it may never come back? They don't want to be accumulating dollars because dollars are the music's going to stop and they don't want to be left without a chair. And that's what's going to happen if they're sitting there holding dollars and dollar collapses and it's scrubbed out. So this is only going to get you by so far. You know, stores will want to try and trade cash before they realize what's going on. If they keep their doors open and their tills are able to operate without power and without the internet, then maybe, but not for long. It'll be a week before people just aren't interested in your cash anymore. So bear that in mind. So preparing for the event then is coming down to just thinking about things, having the right mindset and thinking things through in your life, in your environment, in your zone and where you live in your daily routine, and analyze specific preparedness needs for you, your family, where you are, your property. And you need to have a long-term preparedness goal as to what you want to get to. If that's you want to have 3 months worth of preps, you want to have 1 week's worth of preps, you need to have that short-term and long-term goal, so that you're not overlapping stuff, overbuying stuff in one area and completely missing out on another, right? You need to assume all assets will go to zero. The best way to think it through creatively is to just imagine everything's going to zero. The stock market, cryptos, the price of gold, right? Everything's going to zero. It's a difficult one. But you have to assume the possibility, yeah? You need to understand how desperation leads to violence, yeah? I've seen it. I've lived in some pretty gnarly countries around the world, yeah? and some pretty gnarly stuff where people get desperate in these situations. Even in societies that are normally extremely civilized, can break down, and that social cohesion is torn in an instant, right? And people get desperate, and when they get desperate, they get violent. Yeah, don't underestimate that ever. Expect all stores to be empty within 3 days. Don't forget, we got the JIT system now, just in time. Stores don't have storerooms out the back anymore. It's like whatever's in the store is in the store, right? The stock gets replenished every day. A truck arrives every day with the stuff on the truck that was sold yesterday. It's literally an unloading bay, not a stock room. No store has more than about 3 days worth of goods on their shelves at one time, assuming no restocking. So don't rely on being able to buy stuff when it happens. Yeah, you need to be, that's not preparation. the pre part of preparation is doing it beforehand, right? Prophylactics. So you need to adapt and change your strategy as the situation changes. You need to be dynamic in your approach. You need to expect the unexpected. You need to be able to flow with the situation, right? You don't want to be rigid in your approach to say, oh, I think this is going to happen, so that's all I'm going to prepare for is this event. And then when that event doesn't happen and something else happens, you're completely unawares, you're completely unprepared, you're completely just psychologically not in the right zone to deal with that, because you've had all your energy and focus invested in something that hasn't been what has ended up happening. So you need to be able to adapt and change your strategy. Yeah, so you need to also aim for about 4 weeks as a minimum. I always say to people, try to budget for 4 weeks, and include bug out options in your prep plans as well, because you may find if it gets super gnarly, you may end up with damaged property that you may want to leave and bug out from. So have maybe some plans with some nearby family, friends or something like that, or distant family and friends where you can go to if it's safer, with the plans to get there, and so on, right? So before we get right down into it then, preppers who think they're prepped but are not. So watch out for some of these things that I see so commonly. Multiple unseen short and long time threats. A lot of people just sort of are thinking through the eyes of, you know, rainbows and unicorns, and like, oh, you know, my neighbours would never do that to me, or oh, the people who live in my town would never go around the streets doing that. Believe me, they would, right? So overconfident in a single discipline, you get people who are sort of super into hunting and stuff, and they just don't have any preps of any food because they just like, I don't need to because I'll just go out hunting if I have to. It's not a good plan. It's not a good plan at all. And again, who's looking after your family while you're out down the lake fishing or you're in the forest hunting, right? And you got to make it back with all your stuff. So yeah, just false sense of security, complacency, people with all the gear and no idea. Yeah. Badly thought through, half-baked ideas. You've got no idea the stuff people I hear come out with. And I'm like, in real life, it doesn't play out like that, believe me, right? I've been in countries where shit's played out like that, and I can tell you what really happens, yeah? So you need to be researched. It's not just what you think because of your friends and how they are. You need to understand how humans get in groupthink, when they get in panic mode, when they're on survival instinct of just freeze, fight, flight, and fawn. They just, you know, people knee-jerk into these things, and it's dangerous, right? People make illogical investments in survival gear and preps that they're never going to need, never going to use. A lot of victims of false economy traps I see out there. We'll talk about a few of them, and what I see the most is this hopium and copium. Yeah? People convincing themselves of things just because it makes them feel comfortable and warm and fuzzy inside. Cheers, everyone. We need to deal with the reality of it and the gnarliness of it, full sharp toothness of it, so that we can really get down and dirty with our thought process of how do we protect against that? How do we mitigate that? How do we avoid that? Yeah. So one video I'd recommend, again, I'll link that in the description below. This is an entire series, podcast series I did of security and defenses during an SHTF scenario, including offensive measures, defensive security systems, you name it. It looks worse than it is, but although this is actually a screenshot from the video, but I'll link this in the description below, and I'll put a card up here as well for you so you can check that out after this one. But that's a good one that deals with sort of how things can get and how you can coordinate yourself in your property. It's a great series, this one. I highly recommend it, linked in the description below. So in terms of what 1 week's worth of preparations would actually look like, I sort of put this together just to give you a rough idea, just for comparison, right? So this is what 1 week's worth of preps. This is where you should start. Start here, right? 500 buckaroonies, 7 days of water, bottled water. I mean, you can get the 5 litre, 1 gallon jugs of drinking water. You need one of those per day per person. So 7 days, 7 of those is doable. 1 week of food, pretty straightforward. I was going to say, do you need food? Of course you need food, but in terms of the rule of threes, you know, 3 hours without air, 3 hours without shelter, 3 days without water, but it's 3 weeks without food. So theoretically, 1 week's worth of preparations, most people, not most people, but several people would have enough food in their cupboard anyway to eat normally for the rest of the week. But theoretically as well, you could not eat for 3 weeks and still survive, but you're not going to be in the best shape. But 1 week of food is so easy to do, you know, a couple of bags of rice, you know, some noodles, some, you know, chunky soup tin, some, you know, tin peaches, tin fruit, rice pudding, these sorts of things. Baked beans, great fibre and great protein, and last a long time. So easy to do. Battery banks, get yourself some USB battery banks. These sorts of 70 watt hour ones are what I tend to like to use. They're sort of a bit more meaningful. I like the USB-C power delivery PD versions as well. You can run 12 volt devices off those, but having at least 3 of those for a week so you can at least keep your main things charged, like your lantern, your torches, your headlamps, stuff like your Baofeng ham radios and your wind-up radios and things like this, right? So your regular, just normal radios. You can at least keep those things charged, and your smartphone here and there for that week. Medical supplies, a week's worth, usual kind of stuff, limited basic security needs. So it's pretty straightforward stuff. This is what 1 week would look like. And what I'm saying here, you see, is that then you would get this if you want to achieve 1 month of preparation. So the idea being is that you need to get your 1 week first, then you need to do the 1 month, because you'll still use the stuff that you just bought before, including those battery banks. But here's some of those false economies that, like when you look at the 4 weeks worth of water, now you're talking about having to buy 28 gallons of bottled water, and it becomes actually quite costly. It's about $1 a litre in some cases, right, of bottled drinking water. Whereas for a similar amount of money, you can just buy a water butt, you know, a big 200 litre water butt. If you've got the space, this is, of course, don't forget you're personalising your preparedness. If you've got limited for space, you may have no choice but to use maybe like a bath, aqua bob, is it? The bag thing that goes in the bath you can fill up. But there's lots of ways of storing large quantities of water, and then you can just use the same amount of money to buy a nice filter that's good for doing 30 days worth of water for you and your family. So whether that water's kept in a water butt in the garden, or whether it's water you filled up from your mains into the bath in a special bag to keep it, but bear that in mind. It becomes expensive to try and prepare for water, but don't forget the week's worth of water you got here for your week's worth in the bottled is pretty handy to have as well, yeah, because you've also got those bottles to refill afterwards. So 4 weeks of food is just quadrupling what you did before, but it may include things like the means to cook it. So you may need to get a nice gas stove and a good propane tank to run your camping gas stove just to heat it. But you see, here's another example. 12 USB battery banks would be the equivalent. If you're getting 3 for 1 week, you'd want 12 of these USB battery banks. It's just not, it doesn't make any sense. So this is where you get into a false economy. You might as well just get a small off-grid power system, yeah, where you get like a couple of 100-watt solar panel, a decent, you know, deep charge battery, deep cycle battery, RV battery, yeah, leisure battery. Just a lead acid one is fine. You can get for like $200, you can get like a couple of 100-watt solar panels, a charge controller, all good to go. right? And you can be essentially recharging all your main items infinitely. You can obviously use a cigarette car lighter in your car as well, but don't forget you're using about half a gallon of fuel per hour of running your vehicle on just on idle to keep your battery topped up. If you're going to use your car to charge your devices, you need to bear that in mind, right? So things like medical supplies, you're going to need an awful lot more than you did for the 1 week, because things are going to get gnarly over a 1 month. There's going to be more chances of you having cuts and bruises and things like this from, you know, struggles and broken glass in places getting cut and burning yourself on paraffin lamps and things that people aren't used to using until it's a crisis, and then they realize how they're not used to doing these things and they come unstuck, right? So personal protection, communications, defense is going to be super important for the 1 month. You're going to need to spend an awful lot more money on that. I'm talking $4,500 to have a good month's preparations. And of course, if you've got a family of 4, that's going to be like 3 times that. So hunting and growing, not really much need if you do a good enough job of your food storage and stuff, right? But you just need to be self-sufficient during this period. So hardware and spares, you know, timber, ply, basic tools to make your repairs on your property if it gets gnarly and you get damaged. Just a reminder here to obviously scale this in your own personal situation. Your own individual needs are going to be varied, right? Because if you've got disabilities and health needs that require you to have medication that's refrigerated, then you're going to have to flow into your equation the ability to maintain refrigeration during a grid down scenario for a month, which would mean you're already going to be heavily investing into an off-grid solar power system that's capable of running like 75 watts or so continuously, whether it's nighttime or daytime. So you would need a good like 2 kilowatt system for that. So let's assume then, yay, with all my videos on my channel that you should watch if you're new here, and with all the advice you've got from everyone else, and with all the preps you've done, you've managed to survive the event, right? You survived the Great Reset, right? Congratulations. Well done for surviving the carnage like a true Sigma prepper. Yeah. Cheers to that. Right, no, it's not over yet. Right? We just survived the event, right? Because the event was all designed for them to bring in their new system. Yeah. New system. How exciting. But is it? Probably not. No one's going to like it. So the new system is established, right? It's going to be rainbows and unicorns, right? Build back better, right? You know how it goes. So your prize, yeah, your prize as humanity for surviving that event, because not everyone will, bear that in mind, right? And not everyone's supposed to survive what they got planned for that last month's carnage we just all been through, right? But we're hoping we're going to come out the other side, like, not I don't want to say better than anyone else, but at least as well as we went in, you know, compared to anyone else. That's the idea. But our first prize for surviving is our central bank digital currency card, sponsored by United Nations here. I had to put their logo on it just for a laugh. But that's what we're talking about anyhow, your slave card. Look, do you like it? I spent way too long on these slides, you know I did. Anyway. You get the point. So we get these dished out. Of course, we have to go down to the local FEMA camp, wherever they've set that up in your local area. And when you go down there, they'll have their little military pod thing that you go into, and they've got the camera set up, and you just like around your head and shit. Right? Fingerprint, right? Face print, palm print, right? All that. And then you get out the other side of their little military tent, and you get your little CBD card with your first 100 UBI, Universal Basic Income credits, or tokens they'll call it, because it'll be like digital currencies, a bit of tokens, right? So you'll get your first 100 UBI tokens to spend, right? And then if you go up there, Mrs. Jones, if you just pop up the road there, you'll see to the next tent, you'll see where you can spend that to get yourself some food. And then you'll go up there and it'll be like 1 loaf of bread is like 50 tokens. It's like WTF. 2 loaves of bread for my 100 UBI. Anyway, we're not going to get into it. I'm going to start ranting. We don't want to do that. Next, wealth timeline then. Just as a recap, right? So this is where we've gone through. We've gone through to now. We've made it through the SHTF scenario with our lives intact. And hopefully all of our loved ones, family and pets. Don't forget about your pets. Now, this is the aftermath now. This is like after it's all done. We've got the new system's been rolled out. We've been in our FEMA camp to go and pick up our new CBCD, our new digital ID and all this other shit. we've got home, right? We've got home from the FEMA camp, standing in the queue all day with our bucket to fill up with water, and you know. So what we want to know is, right, because our objective was to carry our sheets through, yeah? So that's the question, has your wealth survived? So we're going to look at the different options of wealth survival, right? What are the options? And we'll go through each one. We'll look at the pros and cons and we'll see what you think, yeah? So physical cash, fiat bills, you know, euros, dollars, pounds. Physical gold, and we're not talking about in your bank balance, we're talking about lich sheets in your wallet, in your handbag, in your purse. Physical gold and silver, cryptocurrencies, stocks, bonds and shares, jewelry and fine art, land and property, hardware and stuff. So we'll look at each of the pros and cons of these, and we'll decide what we think is the best thing to hold your sheets in, to go in, through and out the other side intact. Now, physical cash. Is there even any point having this in here? Probably not, and we probably won't ever talk about it again in the rest of this video. Because non-existent. I mean, that's the whole point of this Great Reset, is to get rid of this stuff. This is the enemy to the globalists, right? Cash is the enemy. So they want to get rid of that, right? So they are likely to make it outlawed or banned, yeah? So the CBDC is completely digital, don't forget. So this is... cash would be in direct competition to the central bank digital currency. So the whole point of putting the whole system down like that for a couple of weeks is to do that transition. So, oh, sorry, it all crashed, it all went bad. Everyone's in trouble around the world. So we just decided behind the scenes that we're just going to like reset it all. And now we're doing this CBDC. So we don't need cash anymore. So the value will basically be zero because no business will be able to process it because your banks won't accept it. There'll be no credit card processing of it. So it'll be worthless in trade, yeah? So let's just ignore cash, because definitely don't keep that because it's not gonna age well. Now, physical gold and silver, of course, you know, gold is the money of kings, silver is the money of gentlemen, and fiat currency is the money of slaves. Well, it's the money of slaves is going to be central bank digital currency, but currently it's fiat currency. So gold and silver, gold, it's good for small and medium amounts, is a good thing, right? I mean, you could say it's good for large amounts as well. It's funny, I was looking today. I was looking today at the, do you know those ones you see in Hollywood movies, the brick of gold, right? They're basically 12.5 kilos, 400 ounces of gold. And I looked, it's like $1.3, $1.2 million for one of them. £1 million for a brick of gold like you see in the movies. 12.5 kilos they are. Now, but this is the thing. This is why I didn't put good for small and large amounts, just for medium. Because it's like, how are you going to be carrying 12.5 kilos, 400 ounces worth of gold around? You ain't walking through the airport with that, for a start. Right? But I'm just saying, it's quite difficult. But it has been a default storage of wealth for 5,000 years plus. Yeah. And it's likely to appreciate like it has been, right? If you look at the price of gold over the last year, it's been like 40% increase in a year. What about the cons though? And let us know if all the other pros of gold, because I've only listed the first 3 in there, and it's up to you to whack them in the comments below and what you reckon, yeah? Same with the cons, right? So safe storage options. I mean, you're going to have a vault of some kind. You can't have $1 million worth of gold. Right? I mean, yeah, you can get the 1 gram, which is like $150, $100 for a 1 gram of gold. You know, like 1 ounce of gold is obviously going to be more like $3,000, £2,500, which is a nice kind of amount. It's like a month's salary type wage amount. And 1 ounce isn't too horrific to carry around with you, or to keep hidden somewhere. But once you start getting beyond that, it's difficult for storage of it, right? In terms of big vaults and things. And we've also got the thing with the confiscation, because don't forget, like 1933 or whatever it was, when Roosevelt took it off the guy, basically did the gold confiscation thing in America, and it was just totally banned and illegal. So there's nothing to stop them doing that again. Yeah. And you've got limited value versus mass. You know, if it was like the weight of it versus the how much of money you're storing. Yeah. So it's a tricky one. It's a tricky one, but let me know, you know, what you think, and other downsides to gold and silver similar. Now, the other thing as well is this is nothing to do with what you're going to do during the SHTF. You're going to be trying to trade gold and silver people. They don't know how much what it's worth. This is more about using the gold to then transfer back into your now new central bank digital currency is the way it will work. Yeah. So you would think that you would be able to convert your physical gold into whatever the new currency that's now been set up is, the central bank digital currency, whatever they'll end up calling it. Yeah. That's the idea. We've got to be able to convert it on the other end. This is the pros and cons of, yeah. So cryptocurrencies, massive one. A lot of people are hedging their bets on cryptos. You see, good for small and large amounts. You know, it's not really a limit. You know, it's like a business just last week, I think, just bought 1,000 Bitcoin, and they're like $100,000 each. Do the math on that, right? So businesses are buying tens of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin themselves, yeah. So for large amounts it's good, as well as for small amounts. If you just want to buy $10 of crypto, you can, yeah. That's the beauty of it, and you can do it 24/7 as well, unlike stock market. So quick and easy to invest. You know, it's like boom, 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 job done. Super easy. To the moon, you know, equally like we said with gold, you know, likely to appreciate like it has. Same with cryptos, particularly so, where a lot of people are hedging against the dollar and fiat currencies with cryptos. And so leading up to the collapse and the crash, that would be where people would flee to with their dollars, right? And so to the moon is what people expect to happen. And then after the aftermath, and then their cryptos get reinstated, the network gets reinstated, everyone gets back online, and they've got their epic levels of Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever they've got. And then they're kings of the world, right? With their billions of universal basic incomes tokens, right? In exchange, in comparison. So some of the downsides though, highly volatile, who knows, right? It hasn't had the 5,000 years that gold has had in that respect, you know. Could be banned. I mean, it's more difficult to ban cryptos, to be honest, than it is gold, just because of the nature of it. It was designed not to be banned, cryptos, right? Which is why, despite how many countries have tried to, it's still going stronger than ever, right? Unlikely coincidence. So confident with web apps, you know, you need to have some confidence with not necessarily IT, but if you're pretty good with web apps, if you've ever opened a Netflix channel before, I'm sure you'll be fine. You know what I mean? It's becoming more and more easy, but there is a level of internet and app savvy that you'd like to have, and confidence at least for it. But it's no more difficult than setting up an account of anything on the internet, to be honest, nowadays. So let me know as well your pros and your cons in the comments below, as you're watching this live. Yeah, just let us know other things that come to mind for you of benefits of cryptos in this event. What were some of the problems or the downsides of converting that back into your system, or trading that for goods the other side when the new system takes over, right? And whether that is viable or not. So I really want to hear your thoughts, yeah. So you got stocks, bonds and shares, your traditional kind of like stock market game. Again, good for small and large amounts, just like crypto, tens of millions versus $10. Quick and easy to invest if you did want to launch into it. Again, like crypto, super quick, super easy. Within 24 hours, you're already investing, yeah. Potential profits and stability. Like crypto and gold, you know, while your wealth is stored in stocks, bonds and shares, there is a chance, of course, of profits of that. But let me know definitely what you think about other pros of stock, bonds and shares. But I'm not that convinced, to be honest, because with the total market collapse as is potential, and let's face it, if the dollar collapses first, or if the euro collapses or something that triggers it, or it's just a cyber attack, then when the banks go down, it's going to affect the stocks anyway. But it would be to suggest that those businesses are going to go away and never come back again. If they're big businesses, you know, like the S&P 500 type businesses, if they're the things like the Teslas and the Googles, and I say Teslas, that's probably a bad example nowadays, but some of the businesses that you can't imagine going anywhere, even through all of that crisis and coming out the other side, you would imagine that their stocks themselves would be revalued in the new universal basic income token or whatever it would be, accordingly, right? So there is the chance of that. That's what people would be relying on, but it seems far more sketch for people to try and imagine that be the case. How do you carry that over with the business stocks and things, let alone when it comes to bonds, government treasury bonds that you could invest in at like 4 or 5% return a year. With all the government printing, the government bonds are in that currency, so they're going to be the first things that are likely to be like to nothing. Equally, 2008, we saw what happened in 2008, and this would include things like pensions, investing in pension funds, right? They're going to be the next 2008. Isn't going to be property, it's going to be pension funds. In my humble opinion, if you look at where the money is and where it should be and where it isn't, right? Pension funds is the thing that's going to collapse next, the bubble, with all the dodgy packages of, yeah. So even that is going to probably be the actual thing that causes the collapse. When things are so overinflated, when things are so overvalued already, to the point of should have collapsed ages ago, but haven't yet, right? It's difficult, I think, for people to have confidence in the stocks, bonds and shares as a way of storing their wealth long term through a crisis like that. But let me know your thoughts if you've got a different idea to that. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. So jewelry and fine art. Some people are right into that, right? I mean, jewelry can include things like cut diamonds, cut rubies or whatever, right? Including like fine art. I've got a Mona Lisa up there. I don't expect you to be trading that or keeping all of that. But this is what billionaires do, don't forget. This is what billionaires do, right? I say good for small and large amounts. You know, you can have small gems and things you can sell for like $100 here and there, $1,000. But good for large amounts as well, you know, sort of like fine art pieces, famous Rembrandts or whatever that you got, are always going to maintain their value because of that exclusivity, because of that rarity and so on. So good value stability, theoretically, if you look over time with fine arts investments and things like that. Other benefits of jewelry and fine art, I mean, of course, in terms of the cons of it, risky, unknown sell market. I mean, if loads of people who are wealthy get wiped out during that crisis, during that event, during that reset, then are you going to have as much of a bigger market to sell to who's got as much money? So everything would be revalued. Yeah. Really what you'd be looking at is to ask yourself the question, well, to compare, you'd be looking at how many loaves of bread could I buy with this cut diamond right now in 2025? And then look at in 2026, right, when it's all collapsed and gone the other way, or 2029, 2030, wherever it's going to be, could be tomorrow. And you say, well, how many loaves of bread can I buy with it? How many universal basic income tokens do I need to buy a loaf of bread? And you compare the value of the two currencies and how fine art and things would follow that. We don't know. And there was also a lot of specialist knowledge as well to make sure you're not buying fakes and not buying stuff that people don't want or never heard of. So you've got to know what you're doing. The safe climate as well. I mean, you can't just have like expensive, rare art without having all the storage facilities with the humidity controls, the air conditioning, the environmental controls needed to keep these things in tip-top condition to maintain their value. That can be difficult. You've got to maintain that during a potential grid down scenario, cyber attack, you know, global cyber attack that takes all the grid down everywhere and all the banking down everywhere. That's probably what's most likely. So, yeah. You need a lot of storage space as well, right? So land and property. Not so good for small amounts of wealth that you want to try and help survive and store, but for large amounts certainly could be, and at the same time potential rental income along with it. So in terms of, like we've compared before with the appreciation of gold and the to the moon of cryptos and so on, and potential profitability of stocks, potential rental income, but somewhat safe from repossession, right? This is the thing. This is going to be largely assumes no mortgage, because debts is a big thing, yeah. How they're going to handle that, right? So lengthy sales purchase process as well. It's not the sort of thing you can liquidate quickly. You know, you may not even be able to sell your property. You know, by the time, and again, this is something you need to start the process now, really, with how things are escalating out there. You'd need to start the process of buying land or property and investment like yesterday. Months it can take to secure the sales process, and if there's a minimum investment required as well. It's not like if you've got $10,000 that's enough to do anything with land and property. So there's a minimum buy-in amount, I guess, in that way. It definitely assumes no mortgage, because, you know, don't forget, you'll own nothing and be happy. That's their mantra. So I think they're talking about property more than anything else with that. I think they see a world where everybody's renting. Some European countries are like that culturally. I think the globalists want that to be the case. It's like they own all the property and we all pay rent out of our universal basic income allowance, right? So yeah, I'm a little bit, the whole land and property thing. In the UK, I can tell you now how much they're doing everything they can to make owning property and renting it out and things like that, being a landlord, just impossible from a tax perspective and everything else, regulation. It's not good for renters, and it seems like it's not actually good for landlords either at this point. So land and property, again, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'm sure there's loads of you shouting at the TV screen right now at me, saying, what are you talking about? Property's brilliant. But let me know your thoughts, and I'll be really interested to hear. So here's an interesting one. Hardware and stuff is another thing you can invest in. This is perhaps one of the most stable, really, because it's always going to be used. Good for small and large amounts if you're buying tools and, you know, power tools perhaps and things like this, supplies of that nature. I know a guy who bought, talking of marine plywood, he bought something like 20 sheets of marine plywood back in 2018. For like $20 a sheet, and apparently like $80 a sheet now for the same thing. And he's just saying about how many sheets he's got and how much money he's made just from having randomly 20 sheets of plywood, right? And the same can happen here. Quick and easy to invest in things, usable items, long term, all those things we talked about as part of those preparations, things like solar panels, off-grid solar panel systems, generators. All these things are super valuable before, during and after a crisis, believe me. And you can turn them around in the sheets pretty quick, right? And for bartering the things that you need, super handy. Usable items long term as well, you're the one who's keeping hold of them, so they may even come handy for your own use, let alone bartering. In terms of the downsides of hardware and stuff as an investment to keep hold of, the storage space is of course going to be the biggest one. It's going to be an unknown sell market. You're probably always going to be guaranteed you're going to be losing money of what you put into it versus what you can sell it for. But I would know other people that would argue with that and say, well, how much they buy their sledges, their sleighs for in the summertime, and then how much they sell them for in the wintertime when it's snowing. They just can choose any price. And so that is an example when there's a big shortage of things and you happen to have that sell market can be extremely profitable. So it's a tricky one, and of course all of that stuff, the hardware and things particularly, is going to require maintenance. It's going to have depreciation attached, but a lot of people swear by any spare money putting it into hardware and just stuff, yeah, that you know you're going to use over time. Pairs of shoes that are your size, yeah, pairs of glasses that you know you're going to have to replace at some point. Get them now. yeah, at today's prices, before inflation and so on, right? Let me know your thoughts, because these are one of the ones that we've been talking about. Of course, we haven't even listed the cash here, because what's the point? There's no point trying to keep currencies. Any currency wouldn't be safe. Too many unknown entities. But I'm really interested to hear your thoughts. Yeah, other investment options that you think are worth considering or looking into as ways of securing your wealth during this event out into the other side. Don't forget, our big challenge here is to try and find something that we can then transfer back into the new currency system, whatever that's going to be. I use the example of UBI tokens, but yeah, that's the point. How do we maintain our wealth throughout that, out the other side? Let me know and live in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts on it. Other options I haven't talked about here would be lovely to hear from and hear about and get a discussion going about it, right? Because this is something that's like super relevant today. So please hit the like button if you haven't done already. We've done a lot here. We've covered quite a few bits and pieces. And if you have learned something or feel my efforts have been worthwhile, please do hit the like button and share this video on your social media. Super important. I've also linked another video description below. This is part of the Warzone Wednesday series. Episode number 7 particularly though, as part of the podcast series, I've linked it below. Economic warfare tactics. There's a lot in there that you could learn from as well. It's absolutely epic, that video. I put a lot of work into that. It's like 100 slides. If you've liked this presentation, you'll most certainly like that one and the rest of the Warzone Wednesday series. So I've popped that in the description below and also popped a card up there for you to click on to take you to that video. And that has been Surviving the Economic Crisis, a more strategic approach to preparedness. I do very much hope that you found this exciting and interesting and educational. I certainly put a lot of effort into producing it for you. I hope you've enjoyed it and you feel like you've been able to consider some of the things that maybe you hadn't considered before. I'd really like to get that discussion going in the comment section below. So please do check out the description as well. Join our Discord server. Please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done already. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Hit the like button. It's a great way to help the channel. I've been Drew. This has been the Sigma Prepper channel. What can I tell you? Love, peace, and progress. To the pack.
Reject the herd, prepare the pack. Click the like button, it's as easy as that. Check the description for the links you need. Follow my socials, subscribe to my feed. From a single lone woman to a family of 5. Learn from Sigma Prepper and see how you can thrive. We understand the risks that tomorrow could bring. We adapt and survive, it's a wolf pack thing. Reject the herd, prepare the pack. Click the like button, it's as easy as that. Check the description for the links you need. Follow my socials, subscribe to my feed.